Hallo,
Servus.
moin. Wir sind Lisa und Gregor. Somebody told me I could say that.
Okay. Das heutige Video. Grimm's fairy tales are darker than you remember. The story of the brothers Grimm.
Yes, and today's video is brought to you by Well, I Never. And we will include a link in the description so you can go on over there and do all of the YouTube stuff. Now, we have Mel, who is a someone in our Discord community family. She's awesome. She's been with us for a long time.
Yeah. And
she recommended that we take a look at some fairy tales, some German fairy tales, and maybe even make it a weekly series.
Yeah.
So
this particular video. So she just recommended to do one, and there were a couple. One just told the stories, which it was like a spooky, scary kind of video. But I also wanted to know the story of the brothers.
The brothers Grimm.
And who are they?
Yeah.
And so this looked like a good one.
Okay.
So.
All right. So I'm excited because I do know a lot about them and some of the amazing stories that they
we know their
created.
stories.
So, yeah.
And all I know is that they do have Grimm backgrounds, but I don't know what they are.
All right, great. So before we get going here, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Help us reach 10,000. We're getting super close, so we definitely would appreciate that. All right, let's go.
Rapunzel, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Hansel and Gretel. You'd be hard-pressed to find an adult or a child who isn't familiar with at least one of these fairy tales. Stories like these have taught generations of children lessons on bravery and kindness. They've shaped the work of authors, becoming a vessel for preserving folklore and national identity, and yes, even become the basis for much of Disney's intellectual property. But as familiar with these classic fairy tales as you may be, chances are you haven't heard their much darker original versions as recorded by the brothers Grimm. Today, the Grimm brothers have almost become a folktale themselves. They've even inspired their own movie and television series. In one adaptation, the brothers, played by Matt Damon and Heath Ledger, run a...
Did you know about that?
No? Matt Damon and Heath Ledger?
Yes.
Oh.
What the?
Series. In one adaptation, the brothers, played by Matt Damon and Heath Ledger, run afoul of a fairy tale curse while working as con artists in 19th century Germany. In another, the Grimm fairy tales are true stories recorded by the brothers to help their descendants defeat supernatural entities. The most commonly held belief about the brothers Grimm was that they spent their lives travelling throughout Europe to collect and record these tales. But even that account of the brothers isn't really accurate. So who were the brothers Grimm? They weren't adventurers or demon hunters. They weren't even really authors. They were surprisingly academic librarians. Jakob and Wilhelm Grimm were born in 1785 and 1786 in Hanau, Germany. They spent their childhood in the countryside town of Stinau, where their family enjoyed prosperity and prominence. The brothers were privately educated by tutors at the family's large home until their father died unexpectedly in 1796. The burden of providing for their mother and their siblings drew the two elder brothers together, becoming inseparable for most of their lives. Jakob and Wilhelm studied law at the University of Marburg, but while there, they developed an interest in philology, the study of language in oral and written historical sources. Both brothers eventually became librarians at the Hessian State Library in Kassel. At their peers' urging, the brothers began collecting German folk tales and poetry. This work was of personal interest to Jakob and Wilhelm, who were seeking data on the German language for their linguistic studies, but it also held a political interest. Germany was divided into 30 states at the time, each with its own ruler and laws. The brothers...
30? The 16
30.
right now?
I think so. Ooh, I have to sneeze.
Yeah.
I think it's 16.
Yeah.
Wow, 30.
30.
This created a disjointed Germany and a decentralized national identity. But they also had no interest in a Germany united under a foreign emperor. Instead, the brothers desired a strong shared German national identity to stand up against outside forces. They believed that one way they could help create that national identity was through folklore. In 1812, the brothers published their first volume of 86 folk tales called Kinder- und Hausmärchen, or Children's and Household Tales. The title of the book was the brothers' way of warning people that not every story contained within the book was aimed at children. Many were indeed for the adults or household. The book was a success, and the two brothers spent the rest of their lives continually adding tales, even when their political leanings left them unemployed and dependent on friends. By the time Jacob died in 1859, their collection was in its 7th edition and had grown to over 200 stories and included illustrations. As I said, there is a common belief that the two brothers traversed across Germany and in some cases all of Europe to collect their fairy tales for their collection. But the truth is, the Grimms collected their stories mostly from friends and casual acquaintances within their own social circles. In fact, many of them were told by a girl who lived next door and would eventually become Wilhelm's wife. Her name was Henriette Dorothea Wilde, but her friends called her Dortchen. When she was a teen, Dortchen began telling stories to her neighbours. Her motivations were twofold. She wanted to help entertain the young Grimms, who had by then lost both of their parents, and she wanted to keep the attention of their older brother, who seemed especially interested in the tales she told by firelight. Later, Wilhelm would track Dortchen to her sister's house in Ninterhausen to hear more of her stories, and in 1825, he married her. It's believed...
What? He married his older brothers? I think he said that she made the stories to basically get in contact with his older brother.
To entertain.
Wilhelm was like, I'll do it.
Believed that Dortchen was the brothers' source for much of their 1812 collection, including Rumpelstiltskin, Six Swans, The Frog King, The Elves and the Shoemaker, and The Singing Bone.
Oh, how funny. I mean, she was the creator of all these stories, and she didn't get any credit. But it was her imagination.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And they just took her stuff.
Wow, impressive.
Dortchen told Wilhelm Grimm about a quarter of all the stories that appeared in his book. And it's believed...
A quarter of the stories?
A quarter of the stories.
That much of the collection was gathered this way. The brothers would simply invite people, mainly women, to tell them stories at social gatherings. Jacob and Wilhelm then edited the tales, adding dialogue and details that fit the linguistic aesthetic they hoped to achieve. It's likely that as the brothers became more widely known and respected, the sources for their stories became more varied. But it's primarily Dortchen we have to thank for their enduring legacy. Regardless of where the Grimms collected their tales, their life's work cemented these stories' place in culture and history. Unfortunately, not every chapter of that history is admirable. When Adolf Hitler's Nazi party came to power in Germany, they too strove to shape German nationalism, though in a detestable way. The Nazis used many of Grimm's tales as propaganda to promote their anti-Semitic beliefs. Figures like Little Red Riding Hood and Cinderella were used as symbols of Aryan purity, whilst villains like the Big Bad Wolf were used to portray those who they felt threatened Germany, mainly Jewish people. There were plenty of anti-Semitic tropes ripe for Nazi usage in Grimm's tales, such as witches with stereotypical hooked noses and cannibalistic tendencies, often falsely attributed to Jewish populations throughout much of history. Some Grimm's stories read like Nazi propaganda long before Hitler's editors and illustrators got a hold of them. In the story, The Jew in the Brambles, the protagonist...
I mean, did they know that they were doing this? They probably couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Maybe they just couldn't do anything about it.
Wait,
I don't know.
What do you mean? Did they know that
Did the
they were doing it?
brothers know that the Nazis were using it as propaganda? And
it doesn't seem like it, because it sounded like he just said that Hitler got developed his own stories after or something.
Well, they took the likeness of them and took the likeness of the stories and turned each character into something that they wanted them to be.
Okay, let's watch it again.
Okay.
Of history. Some Grimm's stories read like Nazi propaganda long before Hitler's editors and illustrators got a hold of.
So he said they read like propaganda long before.
Oh.
Them. In the story, The Jew in the Brambles, the protagonist tortures a Jewish man by forcing him to dance in a thicket of thorns and hurling insults like dirty dog. The torment only stops when the Jewish man offers up his own money, and later a judge decides a Jewish person would never voluntarily give away money. The man is named a thief and is hanged. The effectiveness of using classic Grimm tales to propagandize German children was so great that many schools in Allied countries banned the fairy tales following World War II. Today, the stories have been reimagined in new contexts that distance the classic characters from their sordid past. But Nazi propaganda isn't the only skeleton in the Grimm's proverbial closet. In fact, many of the original fairy tales were so dark, it's hard to imagine reading them to a child. Cinderella is perhaps the most famous fairy tale in history, not just the Brothers Grimm version. The tale's origins can be traced back to a Chinese story from the 9th century called Ye Shen. In it, a beautiful and bright child was raised by a stepmother who was jealous of Ye Shen's beauty, for her own daughter was not pretty. When the evil stepmother discovered Ye Shen had made friends with a fish, she captured the creature and cooked it for dinner. In her grief, Ye Shen collected the bones of her friend, which a wise man told her were filled with a powerful spirit that could grant wishes when she was in need. After her stepmother forbade her from attending the spring festival, where young women often meet their future husbands, Ye Shen's fish bones granted her a beautiful dress and golden slippers. The girl attracted much attention at the festival, but was forced to flee when her stepsister noticed her, losing one precious slipper along the way. The king was determined to find the owner of the strange tiny shoe and announced it would be placed in a pavilion where the woman to whom it belonged could claim it. Ye Shen was desperate to retrieve the slipper to restore the fish bone's magic powers. And when she sneaked into the pavilion in the middle of the night, the king was so taken by her beauty that he married her. Her evil stepmother and sister were left to live in a cave, where they were eventually crushed to death by falling stones. Nearly every culture has its own version of Ye Shen, but our modern version is believed to be the work of French author Charles Perrault in 1697, who reimagined the heroine as Cendrillon and added in a pumpkin, a fairy godmother, and glass rather than golden slippers. This is the version we remain most familiar with, a stepmother with 2 daughters of her own who abuses Cinderella terribly. Her fairy godmother transforms a pumpkin into a carriage, gives her a shimmering gold and silver dress and a pair of glass slippers, and sends her on her way to a ball, where Cinderella and the prince fall in love. Left with only a single glass slipper as the sole clue to his new love's identity, the prince sets about trying the shoe on the foot of every maiden in the realm, eventually finding Cinderella. Ever the soul of kindness and grace, Cinderella forgives her wicked stepsisters and brings them to the palace. Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm called their version of the classic story Aschenputtel. Although Grimm's version shared much in common with Perrault's, it was noticeably darker. In this telling, as Cinderella's mother lies dying, she tells her daughter to plant a tree on her grave. She promises that when Cinderella wants something, she should shake the tree and her mother will help her. After his wife's death, Cinderella's father remarries a woman with 2 arrogant, evil daughters. The stepmother forces poor Cinderella to sleep in the ashes of the kitchen hearth, wear old grey dresses, and do the bidding of her 2 stepsisters. When the king announces a 3-day ball where the prince would choose a wife, the stepsisters force Cinderella to help them prepare before leaving her to sort a basin of lentils. Cinderella quickly completes her chore with the help of a few friendly pigeons, then climbs to the top of the pigeon roost to watch the ball from afar. When the stepsisters learn that Cinderella has spent most of the evening watching the prince dance with eligible maidens, they tear down the pigeon roost in fury. On the second night of the ball, Cinderella's family leave her to sort out a sack full of seeds, threatening her that she will go without food if she makes a single mistake. Again, Cinderella completes her task.
This is a story I know.
Yeah.
Where they spill the lentils and she has to count them.
Right.
With the help of the pigeons, who urge her to go to the tree at her mother's grave and ask for help. Cinderella shakes the tree and asks for nice clothes for the ball. The tree drops a silver dress, pearls, and silver slippers, and a carriage appears at her door. She goes to the ball and dances with the prince, but must leave before midnight. On the 3rd night of the ball, Cinderella once again asks the tree for help, receiving an even more splendid gown and golden slippers. This time the prince sought to stop her from running away and covered the stairway with hot, sticky pitch. When she flees at midnight, one of her gold slippers becomes stuck in the pitch. The prince decides he will find Cinderella by having every maiden in the kingdom try on the golden slipper, promising to marry the woman whose foot fits inside the dainty shoe. When Cinderella's stepmother hears of the prince's plan, she tells her two daughters to do whatever they must to make the slipper fit. When the first stepsister takes the slipper to her bedroom to try it on, she finds only the front of her foot will fit. The sister slices off her heel and shows the prince, who agrees to marry her. As the pair walk to his carriage, the pigeons call out to the prince, who sees blood streaming from his would-be bride's shoe and realizes the deception. The second stepsister then tries the trick for herself, slicing off her toes so her foot will fit in the tiny slipper.
What the hell?
That is, they made it so grim.
Yeah? Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that.
But this is the story that I have seen, like in a cartoon or a movie or something.
Yeah.
So it's funny that they don't use the French version. They Hollywood uses
this version,
Grimm version. Yeah.
But again, the pigeons tell the prince of the deceit. Finally, the prince insists that Cinderella be called from the kitchen to try the slipper, which fits perfectly. The couple,
well, she better be glad it fit. She'd be cutting some off.
away to wear,
Probably has blood all over it.
leaving the crippled sisters and furious stepmother behind. The brothers Grimm updated their Aschenputtel several times as they continued to publish new versions of the collection of fairy tales, but Cinderella's story only got darker. In their final version, the brothers make the father a prominent character, well aware of the abuse that his daughter suffers, but unwilling to stop it. When the prince asks if any more daughters are in the house, the father says, "There is only a deformed little Cinderella from my first wife, but she cannot possibly be the bride." Perhaps a more satisfying update to the tale is the punishment of the evil stepsisters. When the two attend Cinderella and the prince's wedding, the pigeons peck out their eyes, leaving them blind in retaliation for their wickedness and lies.
You remember that?
I've seen that. Yeah, they go blind. The pigeons or the birds. I don't know if it's a pigeon.
Yeah.
Pick at their eyes.
Oh, wow.
The story of Cinderella has been told and retold many hundreds of times since the Grimms popularised it, with the most beloved adaptations, tweaking the plot to make it more palatable. Less blood in the shoes, more animal friends, that sort of thing. With minor edits, the story of Cinderella is no longer the stuff of childhood nightmares. But not all Grimm fairy tales are so easily reworked into hot.
I've never seen this version.
Oh.
Like,
no.
Like the real version? I don't think I've ever seen it.
This is the real version?
I think this is the real, like, Disney version. So I don't know what I saw, but it wasn't like this all pretty and, ooh, the little mice. And, you know.
I think I remember seeing it, but like years ago.
Yeah, it was years ago.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, obviously.
Oh, no, I feel like I saw it when I was adult.
Oh.
So, and it was really, like, gross.
Warming stories. The classic story of Hansel and Gretel is still haunting in its more modern telling, lending itself more successfully to the horror genre than children's picture books. Unlike Cinderella, few changes were made to the later publications of Hansel and Gretel by the Grimms. The story remains essentially the same. A woodcutter and his family are suffering through a great famine. The wife convinces the woodcutter to abandon his two children in the woods to save herself and her husband. Hansel and Gretel overhear this plot, and Hansel fills his jacket pockets with white pebbles. The next day, the woodcutter and his wife lead the children deep into the wood and tell them to sleep beside a fire while they cut wood. The children awaken and discover they are alone. But thanks to Hansel secretly dropping pebbles on their way into the woods, they can follow the trail home. Again, Hansel and Gretel hear the parents plotting to leave them even deeper in the woods. But Hansel is unable to gather pebbles and instead uses breadcrumbs to create a trail as they are led deep into the forest. But when they try to follow the trail home, the children discover birds have eaten the crumbs. They wander the forest for days until they come across a little house made from bread, with a roof made of cake and windows of clear sugar. Whilst eating pieces of the house, a very old woman appears, inviting them inside, promising to keep them safe. But the old woman is really a witch, and poor old Hansel soon finds himself trapped in a cage being fattened up for the witch to eat. Gretel is forced to haul water, build fires, and eat nothing but crayfish shells. Hansel fools the witch, who cannot see well, by sticking a chicken bone through the bars of his cage each morning when the witch checks.
I feel like when as an adult, I read all this because of the boys. And I remember having a really thick nursery rhyming book, and it has it had all these stories, but I didn't, because of how horrific these stories were.
Yeah, you didn't read them.
I didn't really like. It wasn't one of those book stories that I read to them often.
So this is kind of like a refresher for me. It's I don't remember all these details like you do.
Yeah,
Yeah, so obviously that tells you who read to the kids.
Yeah, exactly. That's terrible.
That is terrible.
That is terrible.
Well, I don't know.
But yeah, the chicken bone, I remember all this. It was really, it was, as an adult, it was like, God.
Yeah.
To see if he's fattened up enough to cook. Eventually, the witch grows impatient and decides to eat Hansel, skinny or not. For good measure, she plans to trick Gretel into climbing into the oven to check the temperature, then trap her inside and cook her too. But Gretel realizes the witch's plan and asks the old woman to show her how to climb inside. When she does, Gretel pushes her in, slams the door, and the witch burns up.
Good job, Gretel.
There's a movie.
Oh.
It just came to me. There's now a recent movie about all this.
It's called Hansel and Gretel?
Yeah. I think it's called Hansel and Gretel, but it's a horror movie, I believe. And it does all this.
Children
it's scary.
Find chests full of pearls and precious stones inside the witch's house and fill their pockets with the treasures before finding their way back to the father's house. Hansel and Gretel's father is overjoyed his children are well and tells them that his wife has died while they were away. With the riches they took from the witch's bread house, the trio can live happily ever after. While the house made of bread and cake was purely imaginary, the circumstances that led to Hansel and Gretel being abandoned in the forest were chillingly very real. Families often went hungry in medieval Europe, but this fairy tale was likely inspired by the Great Famine of 1315. Across much of the continent, it rained nearly constantly throughout most of the summer and autumn of 1314, and then through most of the next 2 years. Crops rotted, harvests yielded nothing, and livestock drowned or starved. As supply dwindled, food prices soared. It was reported that even the King of England had difficulty procuring bread, since grain had to be dried before it could be used to bake. By the winter of 1315-1316, many peasants had resorted to eating the seed grain they had stored for planting in the spring. In some areas, people were forced to kill their dogs and horses for meat. There were even rumours of cannibalism. Starving and terrified, many resorted to unthinkable lengths to feed themselves and their families. They begged, stole, and even murdered for scraps of food. Many of the elderly voluntarily starved themselves so that the younger generations of their families could survive. However, there were many reports of infants and younger children being killed or abandoned to save their parents the heartache of watching them starve to death, or, like Hansel and Gretel's mother, to ensure they had enough food for themselves. It's estimated that about 5 to 15% of the entire population of Northern Europe died from starvation or related diseases.
5 to 15%, I think it's 10%. Wow.
By the time the Grimms recorded the story of Hansel and Gretel, the Great Famine was a distant enough memory to be fodder for fairy tales. But there was a time when being left to starve in the forest only to stumble across a woman who wanted to eat you was perhaps more of a cautionary tale than a fantasy.
Yeah, I could see that.
With so much of Disney's success built on the foundations of Grimm's fairy tales, it's unsurprising that the company's first ever full-length animated film was a retelling of a Grimm classic, Little Snow White. The Disney version has plenty of darkness, with a wicked queen bent on killing her stepdaughter, a poisoned apple, and a terrifying talking mirror that calls to mind the classic Bloody Mary sleepover game of trying to summon a ghost in a dark bathroom. However, the Grimm version is even darker, starting with the little included in the title of their tale. In its original version, Snow White is not a young woman or even a teenager. She's 7 years old when her stepmother learns from her magic mirror that Snow is the fairest maiden in the kingdom. Overcome with envy, the evil queen summons a huntsman to take the child into the forest and kill her, asking him to bring back Snow's lungs and liver to prove she is dead. Just as the huntsman is about to...
You're nodding your head. You know this?
Yeah, I know this. I know all this. Yeah.
Oh, man.
This is, there are recent, with that girl from Twilight. I forgot her name. But there's recent Snow White movies.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so those are pretty grim. But yeah, I remember he was supposed to, I don't know where I've seen it in the books or something, where he was supposed to take out all her lungs and her, no, he's supposed to bring her heart to her and prove to him, but he couldn't do it.
So it's interesting. You just said those are pretty grim.
I know.
I
know. It's so like weird how that's their last name and it fits. And
do you think that somehow they
played off of that?
Yeah, or something. I don't know. Tied together.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Word Grimm come from them.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Stab her heart. Snow White convinces him to let her run away into the forest instead. Certain that wild animals would soon kill her anyway, the huntsman lets her go and brings the queen the lungs and liver of a young boar instead. The queen orders the cook to boil them with salt and settles into a meal of what she believes are the organs of her small stepdaughter.
Wow. Nice.
Meanwhile, Snow White finds her way to the home of 7 dwarves who agree to let her stay if she will keep the house, cook, make beds, wash, set, and knit for them. When the queen asks her magic mirror again, mirror, mirror, on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all? She is shocked that Snow White is still alive and 1,000 times fairer than she is. The queen...
1,000 times fatter?
Fairer.
Oh.
Oh my God, Gregory, you don't know these stories at all. That's so funny.
I know. I thought he said fatter. I was like, what the hell? Okay.
Fairer.
Fatter. The way he said it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Snow White is still alive and 1,000 times fairer than she is. The queen disguises herself as an old peddler woman and goes to the home of the 7 dwarfs, where she convinces Snow to try out the lace bodice braided from coloured silk. The queen laces Snow's bodice so tightly the child drops dead, or so the queen thinks. The dwarves save Snow, and again the queen learns from the mirror that her stepdaughter is still alive. Again, she disguises herself as a peddler, tricking Snow into buying a poisoned comb. The dwarves save Snow.
Did you know this?
I know. I didn't know all these stories.
Okay.
White for a second time, but when the queen returns with a poisoned apple, they're unable to revive Snow again.
Okay, I knew this.
Oh my God, she didn't learn from the other peasants or whatever that were coming up to her. Like, maybe I shouldn't take nothing.
No, I mean, I know. She just is hungry. She wants the apple.
She wanted that bonnets, whatever it's called. And then she wanted the comb and.
Right.
It's like, come on, Snow White, come on.
Turns with a poisoned apple, they're unable to revive Snow again. The dwarves cried over Snow White's body for 3 days.
Oh.
But still, she had rosy cheeks and appeared too alive to bury. Instead, they built a transparent glass coffin for Snow White and placed her on a mountainside, where she lay for a long, long time, never decaying. Eventually, a prince found the coffin and fell so in love with the dead girl that he begged the dwarfs to let him take her home. The prince refused to be parted from Snow and forced his servants to carry the coffin alongside him wherever he went. One day, a servant became so angry about hefting the glass coffin to and fro that he opened the case and hit Snow White. The blow dislodged the piece of the poisoned apple from her throat, and Snow White woke up. The overjoyed prince told her she would become his wife the next day. The evil queen dressed for the wedding, unaware that the queen-to-be was her stepdaughter, Snow White. Her magic mirror told her the young queen was the fairest of all, and the wicked woman could not stop herself from seeing who the beautiful new interloper was. After the queen discovered it was Snow White, she was presented with a pair of iron shoes heated over burning coals. The evil queen was forced to step into the red-hot shoes and dance until she fell dead. Apparently, the brothers Grimm had something of an affinity for mutilating the feet of their villains. There are many other instances where the Grimm's version of
Wait, I
hadn't heard any of this.
I thought the prince just came and kissed her.
Yeah, that whole. I've heard versions of her in a glass box because I always thought she's gonna suffocate.
Yeah. Okay.
But
he just had his people punch her.
Well, he didn't do it. The guy just did it because he was annoyed. The real story, not the real story, but the Disney story is that he just like saw her in love at first sight and was like, ooh,
and then kissed her and she came back to life. And everybody lived happily ever after.
Didn't say nothing about lodged apple.
Yeah.
Well-known fairy tales contain far more sinister elements than their contemporary counterparts.
Yeah.
In the original version of Little Red Riding Hood, titled Little Red Cap, The big bad wolf arrives early and eats both the grandmother and Red.
Oh.
A passing woodcutter checks on Grandma and finds the wolf asleep in her bed. The woodcutter slices the wolf's stomach open, and both Red and her grandmother climb out. The trio fills the wolf with stones and celebrates their cleverness. In Grimm's Rapunzel, the girl with the long hair trapped in the tower is impregnated by her visiting prince, who throws himself from the tower window in grief after believing the sorceress has killed Rapunzel. The prince falls into thorns that poke out his eyes and wanders the forest, blind for many years.
What?
Meanwhile, Rapunzel has been secreted away by the sorceress to live in the wilderness with the twins she gave birth to. The pair are eventually reunited and live happily ever after.
Okay.
It's easy to see why the original versions of these tales were heavily edited in modern times, but some were so dark that they've been left to languish in the Grimm collection, too disturbing to be modernized by even the fairy tale miners at Disney, or even Cocomelon. Perhaps the most horrific of
I think that's like the #1 cartoon on YouTube.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
tale miners at Disney, or even Cocomelon. Perhaps the most horrific of all these is Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm's The Juniper Tree. Here is the story. A wealthy man and his beautiful, pious wife wished desperately for a child, but remained alone despite praying day and night. One day, the wife stood in front of their house eating an apple beside a juniper tree. While peeling the apple,
Damn apples.
I know.
the wife stood in front of their house eating an apple beside a juniper tree. While peeling the apple, she cut her finger and the blood fell into the snow. The woman looked at the blood and said, "If only I had a child as red as blood and as white as snow." Her wish was granted, and she became pregnant but grew very sick. She made her husband promise to bury her beneath the juniper tree. And when her son, red as blood and white as snow, was born, the woman was so happy she died. Her husband buried her beneath the tree, and though he grieved her greatly, he eventually remarried. The rich man and his second wife had a daughter together, and the wife began to resent the little boy who would inherit his father's wealth instead of her daughter. She took her anger out on the child, abusing him so terribly that the snow-white boy was terrified every moment he was at home. One day, the woman's little daughter, Marlene, asked her mother if she might have a beautiful ripe apple from a chest with a large heavy lid and sharp iron lock. The woman gladly gave her child the sweet fruit, but became filled with rage when Marlene asked if her brother might have one too when he returned from school. When the boy returned, the woman told him to take an apple from the chest, and as he bent over the fruit, the woman slammed down the heavy lid of the chest, slicing the boy's head off.
What the hell? Wow.
What is going on with these brothers?
Oh, no.
The woman knew she had to hide what she'd done, so she set the boy in a chair by the door, tied his head back to his neck with a white scarf, and placed an apple in his hand. When Marlene saw her brother, she asked him for the apple, but he did not respond.
Imagine that.
Oh,
Marlene told her mother about the boy, sitting so still and white and not answering her, and the woman told her daughter to ask again, and if he would not answer, to box his ears. So Marlene returned to her brother and asked again if she might have the apple he had held. When he did not answer, Marlene hit his ear, and his head fell off.
No.
The terrified Marlene ran to her mother and confessed through her tears that she had knocked her brother's head off. The woman said they could not let anyone know that Marlene had killed her brother, and took the little boy, chopped him into pieces, put him into a pot, and cooked him into a stew. When the father came home, the woman told him the boy had gone across the country to his mother's great uncle, where he would stay for a while. The father was sorrowful that his beloved son had left without saying goodbye, and assumed Marlene was also crying because she missed her brother. The father sat down to his stew, and with each bite seemed to grow hungrier and hungrier, until he had eaten the entire pot by himself, leaving a pile of bones beneath the table. Marlene gathered the bones in a silk scarf and placed them beneath the juniper tree, which began to move. A mist rose from the tree, a fire at its center, and a beautiful bird flew from the flames. The bird flew away, landing on a goldsmith's house and singing, "My mother, she killed me. My father, he ate me. My sister Marlene gathered all my bones, tied them in a silken scarf, and laid them beneath the juniper tree. Tweet, tweet, what a beautiful bird I am." The goldsmith was so enchanted with the bird's song that he gave it a golden chain. The bird then sang its song to a shoemaker, who gave it a pair of red shoes. And finally, the bird went to a mill, where it was given a millstone for its song. Then the bird flew to his father's house. He held the gold chain in his right claw, and in his left was the red shoes. Around his neck was the millstone. The bird settled in the juniper tree and sang its song. The father and Marlene found the music beautiful, but the woman heard only a roaring in her ears and fire in her veins. The father went out to see the bird, who dropped the golden chain around his neck. Marlene went out next, and the bird threw the red shoes down to her. The woman felt the world was ending and decided to go out too, to see if the bird would make her feel better. But as she walked outside, the bird threw the millstone at her head, and she fell down dead. The bird then transformed back into the boy, took his father
Yay, good, he's back.
and Marlene by the hand, and led them back into the house, where they sat down at the table to eat, forgetting the child abuse, murder, and cannibalism entirely. The evolution of Grimm's fairy tales from their original dark and often gruesome narratives to the sanitized versions we know today reflects societal changes in values, norms, and the purpose of storytelling. Many of these stories were initially intended as cautionary tales that mirrored the harsh realities of early 19th century life, and their evolution into the more romanticized fairy tales we know today has allowed them to remain relevant for centuries. And though we would not share these dark versions with children now, revisiting them in their most sinister form is still endlessly entertaining. Thank you for watching, and thank you to this episode's sponsor, June's Journey.
I mean, I could see how they're like a weird cautionary tale of make sure that, this doesn't happen again.
Right.
Like the Hansel and Gretel, like with the starvation and, your parents might try to kill you. So make sure you leave stones,
Well, it seems like they all ended with a good story. Like at the end, like he came back to life.
Yeah, that's true.
Snow White, she came back. Hansel and Gretel, like they all ended.
Yeah, that's true.
They were just grim.
Yeah, so I think just like what was it? Was it Snow White or Cinderella?
Which one?
I think it was Cinderella. It was originally created by a French. No, that one was the one that was originally created Chinese.
It was Cinderella.
Yeah, but the Chinese had an original version, and then the French guy, he changed it, and then the Grimm brothers changed it even more. And I think the Grimm may have done that to other fairy tales, because I think there was a lot of fairy tales that came out of the UK, and I'm wondering if they just kind of tweaked them into their own, and which ones were actually theirs.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to just maybe there's he said they had over 200 stories.
Yeah.
I think it'd be pretty cool if we could find
stories
or something.
Yeah,
so
like that
out there
one,
has something.
and hear about that story, like that last one. Never heard of it.
Yeah, never heard of it.
And but it was fun to hear about it now.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we should have a Grimm day. When we do a Grimm story. All right, let's take a look and see what the people got to say here. One reason I love these tales is that they describe how children overcame the most horrific of circumstances. Children were the heroes. These stories give children a sense of strength, faith, and hope. I mean, I suppose that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, like you said, it always has a happy ending. But there's always traumatic events happen before that. Like in
the last one, he did come back, but he also had to kill a lady.
Yeah.
He also had to go through being eaten by his dad.
Yeah.
And all these other things. So, I mean,
So there's all this trauma and horribleness.
I guess the idea is that you got to persevere. Even when you're getting eaten.
Yeah.
And your head gets
or somebody's trying to kill you.
You got to keep going because you're going to come back.
I know. And that's not good.
That's not good.
For the kids to be Snow White came back to life.
Yeah.
This last kid came back to life.
I think Hansel. No, I'm thinking of Romeo and Juliet. Never mind.
Oh, no, they were done.
Yeah, they were done. All right, so an older man giving Gramps vibes with rocking attire and beard, talking about fairy tales in a cool ass accent. Count me subscribed.
Cool.
Yeah, all right, that was nice. I am German and grew up with the fairy tales of the Grimm brothers. They are grisly as they are not to tell children. Wait, they are as grisly as they are not to tell children that monsters are real, but to teach them that they can be beaten. Oh,
that monsters can be beaten.
Yeah, I guess that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they found a positive in them, so that was actually good.
Yeah, that was really good.
So, I am curious to learn more about those.
Yeah.
And hear different versions and stuff. So that's probably, Mel was on to something.
Yeah.
That's probably something we could do there. All right, great. So we do have another channel, Greg and Lisa React, where we react to pretty much the UK. So we will include a link in the description so you can go on over there. We're having a lot of fun on that channel as well. We have a Discord. A link will be in the description. That is there for your enjoyment. Like the video, that really helps a lot. Wie immer, danke fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Video.
Bis dann.
Peace.